Good day, everyone, and welcome to our podcast with our esteemed panel today. Let me introduce you to Dr. Nafi. Dr. Nafi, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Sadiq.
Dr. Umar, welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
And Dr. Mujahid also, welcome to the panel.
Thank you very
So the topic of discussion, we're here to discuss the burden of drug abuse and our Nigerian youth among the youth and students. So I'll start with you, Dr. Nafi. Because this is somewhere that aligns with your area of research and area of expertise. You have worked in some cases like this. So I would like to ask you directly, starting with there's a report by the Ministry of Health that in the year 2022, there's a prevalence of around 20 to 40%. That's widespread of drug abuse. And there's also the increase of around 30% of the drug abuse among students and youth, respectively. What do you think is a moving factor that is causing such rapid increase in the use of drugs among the youth and students?
Okay, Sadiq, thank you for having me into today's discussion. Really, the drug abuse or substance abuse is a public concern, and is a major thing that the world, not only Nigeria, is battling with. And if you take into account the prevalence you have mentioned in the study that was conducted in the year 2022, last year, yeah, we can say there are a lot of factors that influence our youth. That is, according to Nigerian's definition, a youth is aged from 15 to 29, which I think is not different from other definitions, even though there are some variations. So, and this age group is also very, very important considering drug abuse. Why? Because usually what we are discussing today is substance that gets into or that crosses what we call blood-brain barrier and get into the brain and alters its function. And most of the brain functions usually, or the brain itself usually develops since somebody is in utero after birth and until the age of averagely 25 years. The brain completes its development and maturity. And I just want to bring out something very important. The last thing that finishes maturing in the brain is the prefrontal cortex, frontal of the brain, where it is responsible. That specific site is responsible for controlling decision making, self-control, and judgment. And that is where mostly these substances are impacting or exerting their effects that change the youth behavior and what have you. So the driving factors mostly which vary regionally, but we are going to consider or we concentrate our discussion on factors that influence youth in Nigeria to get into drug abuse. The drug abuse factors, mostly, one, you'll find there are socioeconomic factors in Nigeria, which you cannot find in other parts of the world as the leading factor contributing or making youth to get into drug abuse. There are also family crises or family history of drug abuse. Usually, some youths that found themselves in this kind of menace, in their homes, they grown up seeing maybe some of their siblings taking or abusing drugs, or even parents. And the family crisis itself is a driving factor that makes some youths to indulge into drug abuse. Then other factors like maybe they said if you are a male, is a contributing factor. A male has a higher risk of being into drug abuse than female. Then also the attitude of our parents, the rich people, the rich ones, the have ones, that they want to give a lot of money to their children just to satisfy their need, is also a major contributing factor, because a child is exposed to a lot of indecisions, crises during the youth age, of not knowing what is right and what is wrong. So once he's given a lot of money, then he can go ahead and buy whatever he wants. Then we have peer pressure, also, which is also one of the top factors that contribute to the drug abuse among youths in Nigeria. Whenever a child or a youth is mingling with friends that are using such drugs in an abusive way, then for him to be among, not to be excluded, you understand, then definitely he will join and start using the drugs. These are some of the factors, but there are hundreds of factors, like I said, and each and every factor has its own effect in the specific region where it found itself.
Dr. Umar, I would like to bring you in here to ask you
Okay.
this. As you yourself, to what extent do you think drug abuse has influenced the youth uh, in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you. I wanted to say earlier, even though this is not my line of specialty, but even those outside the medical field will have something to contribute in this topic because of the prevalence of drug abuse in our society. But before going further, because I know some of the people that will be seeing the interview, we like to know some things about the basic terms regarding drug abuse before going to your question, please. Drug abuse is when drugs are used for a different purpose than intended, or normally prescribed drugs are taken in excess or in excessive amounts. The intake of this substance leads to physical and mental health, leads to affectation of the physical and mental health of the drug abuser, and not just him, even the general public.
Yeah.
This drug abuse can involve drugs that are normally prescribed by the doctors or illegal drugs. So there are many problems associated with drug abuse, such as tolerance, dependence, and addiction. The incidence is very high globally, but when we take Nigeria as our topic of discussion, it's about 14.4% in the age group of 15 to 64, representing about 14.3 million. So drug abusers suffers from various health impairments, ranging from hepatitis, heart attack, respiratory problems, cancers, neurological problems, and even leading to death. So generally, as Dr. Nafiu earlier discussed, some of the causes that we some of the causes of drug abuse in Nigeria includes poverty, unemployment, joblessness, broken homes, usually from prolonged absence of parental affection or as a result of divorce. And it can also be related to matrimonial problems. Or also parents that usually take drugs can expose also their children to drug abuse as well. And we have to know that nowadays the politicians plays an important role in drug abuse as well. These political thugs that are used for campaigns and rallies also usually engage in abuse of one substance or the other. The peer pressure cannot be ignored because it's one of the most common causes, usually in the community or in the school premises. And low income, low socioeconomic livelihood, because in these areas you'll usually find some slums and ghettos which are crime prone, and usually illegal businesses and sale of these drugs everywhere in this community. So going to your question. So
Should I repeat the
going to
question?
your question, yes, you can say the question again, please.
Yeah, I say, as you yourself, what extent do you think drug abuse has influenced youth in Nigeria?
To a great extent, because if we are looking at the number, as I've said earlier, about 14.4 million, representing 14%, which is a big number. And when we compare this to other countries, the Nigerian number is way ahead of most countries globally. So the incidence is really high, and it's worrisome, of course.
So, Dr. Mujahid, would you like to add anything before I ask you the next question on what Dr. Nafiu and Dr. Umar said earlier?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. So, as Dr. Umar highlighted about drug abuse and drug addiction, commonly some of these drugs can be either prescribed or recreational drugs. Recreational drugs like alcohol, nicotine, and caffeine, while others are prescribed like painkillers. In the healthcare setting, uh, some of the let's say like cancer patients, sickle cell patients, or patients undergoing a lot of pain. Some of these medications are just prescribed in order to alleviate that pain. However, over time, uh, the patients tend to abuse or get used to those drugs, or may want to get higher doses in order to achieve a therapeutic target. So they tend to abuse those medications. However, commonly the substance abused are alcohol, marijuana, nicotine, and what have you. In the ghetto settings, people go as low as inhaling gutter, in smoky lizard patch, and what have you. So the menace is high. And then there was a report by BBC that Kano State has the highest case of drug abuse, according to a report by BBC, with almost 3 million people. The estimate was around 3 million bottles of codeine syrup as of 2017 were used, and the projection was that the value will get higher. So as an add-on to why people abuse drugs, some of the some people are misinformed about some drugs, and we want to try. There is this drug that is manufactured in Ibadan. They call it Afuskura in Kano. Some people just want to experiment, and before they know it, they are into what drug. Uh, they are addicted to that drug. It's highly addictive. They will ask you just to what do you call it, to gargle for 5 seconds and throw it out. You'll be the experience is traumatizing. It's just an adult just gaggling for hours because you cannot spit it out. Because in the first 5 seconds, you will just lose your mind, and somebody will be gaggling, and before you know it, you'll just lose control. And that drug is highly addictive. So some of them are just to experiment. Then some are prescription from friends. Some friends use drug A and they want their friend to try it. So in that instance, the friend will try and then become addicted to that drug. Some are out of stress. One is stressed in his job or in his job, and we want while away time. So he want to use one or two drugs in order to calm himself, and before you know it, he gets into uh, drug abuse. So these are just a few comments, and then the effects of these drugs on one's quality of life. These are agents by which, if you start, stopping can be very, very difficult. Uh, it's not my area of specialty. However, I can tell you that the psychiatrist will tell you that don't start drugs, don't do drugs. The best way to prevent drugs is not to start drugs, because there is high tendency that after commencing a drug, chances that you'll resort to using it back after cessation for a while is very high. So the effect can be one will not be able to be productive to himself and to the community. So there is a bit his thinking faculty is impaired. So one cannot think clearly. One cannot exercise a good judgment. Your judgment capacity will be impaired. Behavioral control. There are a lot of cases of rapes and theft. Some of the snatching and what have you are most of the individuals when they are being interrogated, uh, they will understand that they are under influence of one of these drugs. So it clouds one judgment. So theft, rape, and other vices, they are at high risk. Then there is increased risk of disease transmission. Some of these people that abuse these drugs don't know the implication of sharing, let's say, IV, injections. So they don't know the implication of transferring one virus from A to B. So maybe the 5 individuals can be using a syringe for a dose of drug. So there is high risk of transmission, hepatitis B, HIV, and what have you. So accidents do occur. A patient, an addict can use alcohol after an alcohol binge, want to drive home, and accident do occur. So RTA, that increased risk of RTA. So problems at school, low performance, absenteeism, dropouts, and what of it. So they are all at risk of that. And then neglect. They suffer a lot of neglect, being it from the community, from their family. A father wouldn't want to say that this is my child after knowing that this child is a drug addict. You wouldn't want to, because he's not representing the family as a whole. So they suffer some form of neglect. Theft from money issues. They tend to beg from people. If you have one or two friends that are into drugs, you can allude to that. Each time they call you, you will know that it's they are looking for one or two things from you. So they tend to beg a lot. So which is too bad for them. So these are some of the contributions I have. There are a lot of preventive measures which maybe I will allow my other presenters to
So
comment
before
on
we
that.
proceed, Dr. Nephew, I would like to bring you in now, just touch on what Dr. Mujahid just alluded earlier. Based on the comments he made, do you think, in your own opinion, does geographic location, economic disparities, and also political instability amongst states in Nigeria, a major factor of drug abuse among the youth and students.
Okay, yeah, really, geographic location, let me start with it, is a major factor because if you look into the factors that influence youths to indulge into drug abuse, urbanization is one of the factors. So mostly you'll find that drug abuse among youth in Nigeria is more rampant and observably palpable in the urban cities. And for example, within, let's say, take my state, Katsina, you'll not find it in most of the villages of Katsina State compared to the Katsina metropolis. So geographical location is very, very important. Looking at even the world view, you'll find out that countries, developed countries like USA, they are battling with higher drug abuse among youths, which means it's very, very critical geographical location in determining the frequency, the rate at which youths involve themselves into this type of public health problem. Then also the political instability, as in the beginning, Dr. Umar brought something of that nature, that some politicians, they can engage some youth or in the process of getting what they want. And political instability also means, like all the crises that are happening within and outside a specific region, is influenced mainly by drug abusers, because the youth carry the major, or they are at the front of this crisis, all the political crises that are happening. And you find out that this crisis, even as stated by our current chairman of NDLA, Buba Marwa, he said 99% of such acts occur when the youth use these abuse drugs. So all their actions, 99% of their action is dependent on use of drugs. So it is a major factor also in the influence of drug abuse by the youth of our nation. Then also economic disparities. Yeah, definitely, like I made mention, Dr. Umar also highlighted, Dr. Mujahid highlighted low socioeconomic class to some extent, because there are a lot of reasons why youths want to get these drugs of abuse, the marijuana, the cannabis, the cocaine, and what have you. So you'll find that the low socioeconomic class, there are some motivators in them. Some are just depressed, or some they are just they don't have job. They are not employed, and they are a kind of depressed, or they are a kind of isolated, or a kind of something like that. So they want to feel like they are happy, or they are excited, or they are high. So they start looking for ways to achieve these kind of motivations. How can they achieve them? Is through maybe sourcing such kind of illicit drugs. And sometimes, like Dr. Mujahid said, some youths will use painkillers to relieve their pains, mostly opioids. And from there, they continue using them without anybody knowing. So on the other hand, like I stated, among the rich, the youths that are being spoiled by the parent, with by giving them a lot of money, they found it easy to get the drugs. And coupled with the very relaxed policy in Nigeria of controlling our drugs, drug use. So you can go and just get whatever you want at any pharmacy with little restrictions compared to other countries. So these are all factors that actually come in and facilitate or increase the rate or prevalence of the drug abuse among the youth in Nigeria.
Dr. Omar, I would like to bring you in here to ask you, you have traveled a lot, so you can compare through your exposure. Do you think, one may say, how do you see our government readiness in fight against drug abuse among the youth?
Sorry, again, government readiness.
Yeah, I said you have traveled a lot, so you have the exposure to compare and contrast.
Just the last statement, government readiness.
Yeah, their readiness in fight against drug abuse among the youth.
Okay, generally, I think the government is trying, but Nigeria is a very big country. It is one of the most populous country in the world, number one in Africa. So considering our population of over 200 million, it's very difficult to for the government to do what will be enough for the number of people. Considering the number more than 40 million drug users, about 15% of that age group, 15 to 65. The NDLEA survey that was conducted, I think around 2018 or whereabout, as Dr. Mujahid said, in Kano alone, we have more than 3 million bottles of codeine being consumed in one day. So the number is huge. And relatively, when you compare the number to other countries, I think Nigeria number is also on the high side. And with the increase of this criminality, banditry, and also political violence, it's also increased the number of the drug abusers in Nigeria. But we can say when we compare with the previous years, the recent NDLEA leadership are trying their best, and I think gradually we are going there. The number is decreasing drastically because we all know that Nigeria has recorded successes under this leadership, under this leadership in the arrest of the traffickers and also the arrest of the users. So there is a significant improvement lately.
So Dr. Mujahid, let me bring you in. Like you said it earlier, Kano has the highest number of drug abusers in Nigeria, or let's say to be precise, in the north. How do you see that affecting the growth of that part of the country? And in which ways should we, like say, the government and everyone follow in order to encourage and to eradicate the abuse of drugs among the citizens?
Okay. The report was actually an old report, 2018 by the BBC.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are new data because I didn't check new data whether Kano is still the highest because things do change. In the government is trying it in its own way. When we want to eradicate drugs in the street, we should have a multifaceted approach. One, families two, the society, and three, the government. However, in the case of Nigeria, most the burden is placed on the government, and you and I know that the government alone cannot do that. One, the parents must do their assignments. They must. There are a lot of factors. One, socio-economic factors. A lot of children are in the streets because of poverty, and they get enrolled into those acts because of poverty. So the family size, which you and I know that controlling family size may be very difficult uh, in this part of the country. Then moving to the community. Recently, the community is trying by coming up with stuff like anti-daba, anti-crime, and stuff like that, especially in Kano. Once somebody is perceived as a threat, he's been handed over to the necessary authority in order to be dealt with accordingly. So the community is trying to some extent. However, they need to put more effort. So the government also is trying it in its own way. However, more effort needs to be put in place. Considering the effect the of drugs in the youth are the productive age group. So the youth are the ones that are commonly affected by this menace. So one, there is increased risk of theft, minor vices, rape, and then drop out of school. So once a child cannot study, a child that is under drugs cannot read. If you can't read, then definitely you'll be dropped out of you can't cope. So that in essence, that student will be what? Be chased out of school. So the productivity of the age group is hindered. That's the summary. They cannot cope. They cannot think. These are people that once they are high, they cannot think. They cannot. So it's actually something that it's what do I say? It's something that is affecting the age group. So productivity is kind of going low in that age group because of the increasing prevalence of drug abuse. However, with the help of the community, family, and government, there are a lot of programs that are coming up, which we hope they will kickstart, and then we see the sudden fall of this menace. Sorry to these drugs are actually they are restricted, sir, Dr. Matthew. There is some restriction because people are now wiser. Yes, yeah. They are prescription only drugs now. Once you see them being sold as not prescription only drugs, it's usually at exorbitant prices, and those traffickers are at risk of being pursued by NDLE, and that can lead to a lot of what do I say? A lot of problems to the traffickers. They can get jailed for that. People are now becoming wiser, as basic as cocodamol, a combination of paracetamol and codeine that was initially being used for pain. Now people tend to started uh, abusing it. So now you must get a prescription before you get as basic as that drug. So there is some sensitization by the pharmacists and then the doctors and then other health allied workers about the menace. So now there is some scrutiny about prescription. Now, to the extent that a doctor has to write his name, his phone number, to the extent that some people will be contacted, that are you the one that prescribed this drug? Yes, I'm the one. No, I'm not the one. So one has to ascertain whether he is the one that prescribed a drug that's controlled or not. So it has gone to that length. So at least that some effort has been put in place in order to see such something is being done in order to curb the menace of that. So at least we are trying to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good actually, because mostly these things like the statistics of Kano being the highest among Nigerian states. I think, whenever you are doing a statistic, it depends on various factors. So like maybe, for example, why Kano maybe has been found to be having or be rated as the highest. It was brought from NDLEA, the report. And it is because of its massive operations in Kano State that determines, because they seized a lot of tons of abused drugs, burn them. You understand the approach you do, but there were standard researches that were done and discovered that the south western part of Nigeria, Oyo, Lagos, those states have the highest drug abusers. But due to the NDLA focus now on the north, because of so many factors, you can attest to that, these insecurities that are disturbing the northern part of Nigeria. So the NDLA is focusing more of its staff in the northern part, and more especially in Kano, where business activities is occurring the highest. So that's why they came up with that figure, and they publish it. But all the same is good, and another approach might be done in the future to do a kind of study to investigate which state has the highest abusers in order to handle the menace appropriately. But it's good that this came off. And also with regard to the access to drugs that are abused, like you said, tramadol or whatever, actually is a good effort. And if government will extend this policy together with the people to our local societies, where I think whatever is being done within likely the metropolis. But in our villages, where those small patent medicine stores, also they sell a lot of this kind of abuse drugs without people knowing. They will just go take their money, give and collect. So I think government is doing a good job in that, and I believe by getting good advice from the experts, it will extend its plan to cover the local areas. And like NDLA, actually, I have to salute the NDLEA, like you made mention, because within only 8 months, NDLA was able to arrest about 9,000 drug traffickers and was successful in convicting over 2,000 of them. And over 7,000 tons of illicit substances were seized by NDLA within 2 years. And what the NDLA boss was saying when the governor of Katsina State visited him, because the governor of state believes sincerely that all the insecurities happening in Katsina currently is related to drug abuse. So he visited the NDLA chairman, and the chairman, he was saying that by the end of this year, 2023, their staffing will reach up to 15,000 staff. And if you compare 15,000 staffing of NDLA, which is a drug enforcement agency, to our population of about 230 million, you'll find that the ratio per staff of NDLA is about one NDLA staff is to, let's say, 16,000 population, which is far, far more than even in America, America has one drug trafficking agent per 28,000 population. So we are really going in a good direction. And he promised that by the beginning of next year, he will start or he will deploy all his staff to all the 774 local government of Nigeria, which means in line with what I was saying, if the local government areas, the villages can be under surveillance with the contribution of the community, the traditional leaders, the religious leaders, I think is a good way political leaders can go to some extent to handle this kind of problem. It's really good. I'm really happy by what Dr. Mujahid said regarding this issue, because though I don't know what happened. I left Nigeria and I know people who are just coming by all the without control and without here you can get an antibiotic. In Egypt also is the same. You can get an antibiotic without doctor's prescription. Antibiotic talk less of the abuse drugs. So you just have to go and buy paracetamol or some little ibuprofen if you have some pain or some fever before they decide whether to give you or not. So it's a good effort actually the government is doing, and I really commend it for that. Thank you.
Dr. Omar, just to reiterate on what Dr. Mujahid has said earlier about putting all the loads on the government in order to handle and tackle this abuse of drugs. Do you think the community or the parents should do more in order to assist the government in tackling those issues of abusing drugs?
Yes, generally, I think in the control of drug abuse, the community and also the parents, they have an important role to play, because when we go back to primary control of drug abuse, the sole responsibility lies on the community and also the parents by creating more awareness, and also people generally should be informed and should be aware that drugs without prescription also is a red line. For one to use a drug, it has to come from a qualified physician or health worker. And also the parents should try to keep eyes on who are their children mingling with, and also to observe if there is any change in behavior or attitude of the children, because usually in the early stage, there is a form of withdrawal by the abusers, and some of behavioral changes that if tackled early, the problem will be addressed in its early stage. And also, I believe the community, there are tertiary centers, rehabilitation centers, or rehabilitation homes that are under the supervision of medical personnel, that even though in our society sometimes we also tend to abuse these centers, because as we all know, there are a lot of incidents in our area, maybe Katsina, Kano, whereby these rehabilitation centers tend to make the drug abusers even worse than they were before going to these centers. Because one will go to the center, maybe taking just one drug, and he will be exposed to other people taking tens of drugs. So instead of becoming better, the condition turns to worse. So it's also important for these centers to not just be handled by religious, because some people believe these Islamic schools to take one to what do you call it? These rehabilitation centers, like the one in Katsina. At the end, they would put in chain and also exposing these children to more dangerous drug abusers. So one tends to get used to, instead of getting better, the condition turns to far worse.
Yeah.
And for someone that goes there, maybe taking 1 or 2 drugs, then he will end up being mixed in the same place with an armed robber, or
You're
even
right.
with even a dealer.
Somebody, yeah, who takes a
Yes.
lot of higher than crack,
Yeah.
cocaine, and all those things. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, but generally, as I've said earlier, it's very important for the parents to keep an eye on their children, and also counseling. And if it is picked at early stage, then the children should, sorry, the abusers should be made known of the side effects of these drugs and the long-term implication of drug abuse. So I think these are good ways to tackle the menace at early stage. And the sole responsibility, I think, at this early stage is on the parents as well as the community. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think,
really. That's just, let me
yeah,
just add something. Sorry, Sadiq. Let me just add something to what Dr. Umar is trying to pinpoint. It's also, yeah, really important, at the family level. It's that even at the individual level before coming to the family level. Yeah, like you said, individual level, family level, community level, then the political commitment and the entire nation at large. So at the individual level, it is very, very important for youth to understand that they have a future in life. So let them do the right thing. Let the youth be educated. Let the government bring a lot of policies that educate, create awareness to our youths that they have an important task in the future. Their life is not as usually what they think, like just as of now. That's how youths think. Whatever they do, they don't think of the consequences. So let them be aware of the consequences of whatever they do, whatever their actions are. In the future, they want to be responsible. In the future, they want to have family. They want to build a kind of serene and a good society. Then at the family level, it is also important to say that there are some telltale signs of these drug abusers, the youths, which the parents can be also educated to or should be aware of it. Like maybe your child has started returning home late at night unusually, or he started skipping schools, which is the responsibility of the parent to be in contact with the youth school to know whether the child is attending school or not. And also it's important to observe whether there are some routines or some basic activities that a child or an adolescent is doing at home, and now parent observed that he started skipping them. Then these are some of the signs that, yes, likely that youth has started coming into something. Then it is a right time for the parent to sit with the child or to sit with the youth or adolescent to have an open dialogue. Yeah, be so friendly with him. Ask him about, are you taking any drug? Are your drugs, are your friends you are mingling with taking any drugs? Just have an open dialogue with him and understanding. Just be a good companion to him. As a parent, he will open up everything and he will tell. And once you picked that, yes, he has started taking any of the abuse drugs, the earlier the better. You can just book a doctor. You just start explaining to him without taking the child. Then after, you can take the child later, discuss the issue. So by that, the child, I believe, will be well informed, and even in addition to even himself, he can be able to educate his friends who already are in the menace. This way, I think it will help also in effort to prevent this kind of drug abuse, rampant drug abuse in Nigeria. This is just what I want to
Thank you very much. I think with this, we have come to the end of our podcast. I don't know whether Dr. Umar and Dr. Mujahid will have, if you would like to, there's any commentary you would like to add.
So the comment I would like to add, in conclusion, if you have never used drug, please don't start. That's my conclusion. Because there is high likelihood that once you start, stopping may be very difficult. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mujahid. Dr. Umar?
Thank you for your time. Dr. Mujahid has made a wonderful conclusion. If you've never started, don't don't think of starting.
Thank you very much. Dr. Matthew, is there anything you would like to conclude with?
Yeah, the only thing I will conclude is that let's have from the politicians, let's have political commitment that let us be proactive rather than reactive. Proactive means we should create the basis of preventive measures, not when it occurs, because taking child to treatment center will not always help, because after discharge, there are consequences. A lot of those discharged from rehabilitation centers, they recurs. They went back to the same system. So prevention is better than care. I think that is my final take-home message.
All right. So I think that's all for today. Thank you very much, Dr. Mujahid. Thank you, Dr. Umar, and thank you, Dr. Matthew. Wish you all the best. And with this, we have come to the end of our podcast today. Thank you very much. We'll meet again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night to you all.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
Salam.
Yes, sir.
Ma salam. Ila liqa.